All right, last night, Election Day, it's the day after. So let's dissect some of the races that we saw, both statewide, citywide, countywide, and try and see what this means for the future. We are always pleased to be joined by Professor Jon Taylor from UTSA, political science, geography chair. Thank you so much for joining us, Jon. What is your big takeaway from last night?
Well, let's just say this. If you're a Democrat sitting at home tonight, you're thinking, am I ever going to see our party win a statewide office during my lifetime? We're now talking close to 30 years. I mean, many people in this audience have no recollection of Ann Richards as governor, let alone any other Democrat as a statewide elected. I mean, the Democrats have a huge uphill battle to get competitive between now and 2024, let alone 2026 and beyond. Even though the politics of the state, while it's red, they're not as red as it used to be. And so you got to start thinking, this is a case of you've got to start finding a bench. And the Democrats right now don't have much of a bench.
I want to follow up that question with the question about Bexar County. You're talking about Republicans dominating in statewide races. Democrats have been dominating in countywide races. Is that becoming a bridge too far for Republicans when you see double-digit wins for county judge, for DA, for the sheriff on down the line?
Sure. Well, let's say the northeast and northwest side of Travis County would say, no, Bexar County would tell you, no, it's not a bridge too far. We got Republicans on this side of the county. That said, county is trending much more Democrat than it was even, say 14 years ago. I mean, the last time somebody voted for a president in Bexar County was George W. Bush. Haven't seen it since then. And so it's just getting more difficult for a Republican to win in this county, particularly countywide offices. We saw that last night, a consistent breakdown with Sakai versus DeBerry, Gonzalez versus LaHood, where you had about the same percentage breakdown. And if you looked at the statewide office holders running, it was almost the same kind of percentage, about roughly 56-44, somewhere in there, 57-43. That, I think, is kind of the future of partisan politics in Bexar County for the foreseeable future.
Do you think on a statewide level there were any missteps on behalf of Democrats that led to the results we saw last night, especially in the governor's race? Or is it just there is such a history of Texas being a red state and that's hard to overcome?
It's a little from column A and a little from column B. The Democrats were facing headwinds in Texas to begin with. It did not help that they basically took an approach of let's not focus on the issues that the average voter is actually interested in. Let's focus on issues we think they're interested in. And this is not trying to be insulting to the Democrats, but it's a case of if you think about the issues of crime and immigration and property tax, those were three big issues that kept popping up, not just in the one debate, but in advertising and in questions across the state. Democrats were having a hard time addressing that. Beto O'Rourke specifically was having a hard time addressing it. He also did something else I think that's important to understand. In 2018, he was kind of an aspirational candidate, much like Obama when he was running for president. And so the result was that in 2022, when he ran, he did not run an aspirational campaign. He ran a very negative campaign. And to be blunt, so did his opponent, Greg Abbott. But if you're going to be making the argument about why you should vote for me, this positive approach to why I'm the guy who should be elected governor, he should have stayed positive and let other people do the dirty work of being negative. That didn't happen, and I think that hurt him because, as you saw during the summer into the fall, Beto O'Rourke's negatives continued to climb, and in fact, his negatives were worse than Greg Abbott's by the end.
Let's zoom out a little bit, take a look at a nationwide perspective. In two words, people probably from both parties are sick of hearing at this point, the red wave. The red wave that did not exactly happen. Traditionally, midterms are they're bad news, right, for the president's party, but last night wasn't incredibly painful for Democrats. Is there a reason you think it shook out that way?
Well, I think a couple of reasons why. One, you can make the argument that Republicans were oversold in terms of their candidates. You had a lot of candidates that were basically Trump related. Those Trump related candidates Two U.S. Senate candidates won, but they were winning in seats that were already held by Republicans. A lot of the Trump candidates lost. Two candidates that did not necessarily, they had Trump's endorsement, but they really didn't talk about it much, was Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, and both were incredibly successful last night. They not only won, they actually made their states redder and got all of the statewide elected office holders also elected as Republicans. And so you could make the argument that while we saw this wave, kind of mini wave, you saw it in Texas, you saw it in Florida, you didn't see it elsewhere. Why? Democrats were successful on one issue, particularly with younger voters and women voters, and that was abortion. Abortion, apparently, based on, again, exit polling data, suggests that voters, particularly Gen Z voters, women, were more likely to vote for Democratic candidates because of the issue of reproductive choice. Now, that led to not necessarily the loss of this House or the Senate. That may still happen, but it definitely reduced the potential for a wave. I mean, look at Trump in 2018, or Obama in 2014, or Bush in 2006. They lost substantial numbers. That's not happening with Biden. Biden may, in fact, luck out and get a Democratic Senate, and may or may not get a Republican House.
And even if he gets a Republican House, it may not be a super majority in the Republican House.
Tiny majority, exactly.
Yeah. Jon Taylor from UTSA, always appreciate your time, John.
Pleasure.